Nekomonogatari Shiro is the fifth of Monogatari's many parts. A story about Hanekawa, her feelings, and why if you don't confront and accept your feelings, you'll only end up getting yourself and those you care for hurt. As the first arc of the series, not from Araki's point of view, it is the first time we get to see the world of the series through a different lens, and as such we see not the Hanekawa Araki sees, but the Hanekawa that she sees herself as. So if that sounds interesting to you, then strap in for the 12th video in the Monogatari arc analysis series, where we will explore the beauty that is Nekomonogatari Shiro's Tsubasa Tiger. So if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell. Anyway, on with the video. Nekomonogatari Shiro starts with a self-monologue. My story as Hanekawa Tsubasa is not one that I can tell. Am I me? In other words, Hanekawa does not understand herself, and as such she cannot tell her own story. You cannot talk about what you do not know. Hanekawa, after all, doesn't know everything, she doesn't even know herself. She's awoken by what sounds like an alarm clock, but is in fact just a Roomba. This only making sense, she doesn't have possessions in this house, so why would she have a clock? Maybe in her dream she was hoping for a room of her own and her own clock to wake her up, but as she awakens from this sleep, her dream vanishes and reality sets in. The Hoover bangs into her head, her and her futon are in its way. She more simply is in the way. In this house, her simple presence is just in the way. Out of place. She has no room, so sleeps in the hall trying to find a place to fit in. The fact that Hoover attacks her could even be symbolic of how she's not welcome in this household, as if the very home is trying to force her out. Or how she's so out of place that Hoover doesn't even realise she is there in its way. I mean, why would a Hoover cleaning a hallway even think it would encounter a futon? It's unnatural, it's not normal. As she says, her name is on unstable ground, a name that has changed many times as her parents have too. She can't look to her name for identity because it can change at any moment. Like how she feels, she can't go to her parents for support because they too can change on a dime. To understand herself, she wants to understand her name. She wants something to cling on to and say, that's me. We soon get a picture painted of a house that is not a home. The three residents each have separate cooking utensils. They do not cook together nor eat together. A meal is often said to be eating food with somebody else. What elevates it from just eating is that you are doing it with another. It's why family meals are often signifiers of a strong relationship, as it is a daily event that brings a group of people together. Yet in this household, no one has meals, they all eat alone. They don't connect or come together, they aren't really a family at all. Hanekawa's morning routine is to wake up, eat, change and leave. She spends little time in that house. Maybe because she doesn't feel welcome there, or because the house itself doesn't want a stranger like her living within its walls. It is not really a home she ever wants to return to, just the shelter where she sleeps and eats. And as such, it's only fitting that without a home to return to, she runs into Hajakuji. The dialogue between these characters acts to set up a key piece of information, that Araki is not present, which will be incredibly important for this arc going onwards, as it will be the first arc in which Araki cannot try play the hero, the first arc where the affected person has to deal with their problems all on their own. And speaking of problems, here comes a big one, the appearance of a tiger. Now, like any sane person, seeing a tiger made Hanekawa want to run, yet her body wouldn't let her. Maybe because in this arc she'll finally stop running away from herself. She is standing her ground with this tiger, as she will by the end of this arc face herself. The tiger calls her white, because having now separated all her negative feelings from her heart, all that's left of Hanekawa is the goodness and kindness, the white. But without the rest of her feelings she is not whole, hence why the tiger clarifies that they are white and crystal clear. You can see right through her, because half of what makes her her isn't even there anymore. Now, when Hanekawa tells Senjikahara about this encounter, she's very casual about it. Quite strange, as Senjikahara points out, because usually you don't see tigers on the way to school. And when you do, you generally make a big deal out of it. Hanekawa, you see, shows no resistance to any situation. She accepts everything as is, maybe because it's more convenient that way. She doesn't want to make a fuss, doesn't want to rely on others for anything. Best shown when Senjikahara says Hanekawa can lean on her, and then in the next scene, she is saying how she can't impose on anyone and chooses to sleep in an abandoned building. She is so opposed to leaning on others, she would rather sleep rough than ask to stay over. And well, why is she sleeping rough? Because her house burned down, a house she actually did call her own. It's as they say, you don't know how much you will miss something until it's gone. A part of her did consider that a home, because a big part of her desperately wants a family, to be part of a family and to have a home of her own. But now that home is gone, and so she is left to sleep in the abandoned cram school. However, the worst part is that this doesn't really change anything. She logics out how to shower and charge her phone. She even prefers this bed of cardboard over her futon in the hallway. Her life as a homeless girl is no different than her life inside that house. But even if she thinks it's normal, it isn't normal. And when she is shaken awake by Senjigahara, she is forced to confront that reality. In Hanekawa's mind, this is all nothing special, and because of the way she explains it, we too start to think it's normal. But then we are reminded how wrong we are to assume any of this is normal. Senjigahara, with tears in her eyes, slaps Hanekawa and then bawls her eyes out. She was worried, she was scared of what could happen to Hanekawa. She couldn't bring herself to even consider the possibility this is where her friend would choose to sleep. Yet even so, that was reality. Hanekawa may have known why it's bad on a logical level, but not an emotional one. She didn't feel sad or angry about being forced to sleep alone on the streets, she just accepted it. One of Hanekawa's big flaws, as already mentioned, is how she won't rely on others, and so this moment is so important as it forces her to acknowledge this flaw and see firsthand why it is important. Because her actions, her selfish actions of not relying on Senjigahara, is what caused not herself any pain, but it did cause her friend pain. Her parents might not show any care for her, but that doesn't mean everyone else in her life is the same. No, her friends do care for her. Going back to Senjigahara's place makes Hanekawa question what a home even is to start with. When Hanekawa wants to go back to school on account of it being the normal thing to do, Senjigahara claps back that going to school the day after your house burns down is not normal. Hanekawa wants to follow the rules, you see, and the rules say you don't miss school. After all, Hanekawa is trying to play the role of the perfect high school girl, so to miss school would put that role in jeopardy. She has to be forced to skip school by Senjigahara because she can't bring herself to do it herself. She can't help herself at all. Now Senjigahara assumes the tiger is involved with the whole, house burning down situation, and asks what Hanekawa thinks, and well, she doesn't know. Which makes sense, as once again she doesn't understand herself, and since, as we soon learn, Kako was responsible for burning down her house, it was part of herself that did the act. Hence her not knowing why it happened literally means she doesn't understand herself. And then Senjigahara asks a very important question: does Hanekawa still love Aragi? And she says yes, aka nothing was resolved in Tsubasa Cat, a textbook example of how what Black Hanekawa was doing was no more than a stopgap measure, and since Black Hanekawa is Hanekawa, it shows how she herself doesn't want to save herself, just push the problem away for later, and so by the end of this arc, these feelings of hers, if she wants any resolution to them, she must confront them, not as an oddity but as herself. Hanekawa then rambles on about Araragi for a bit, giving some foreshadowing for his dark past with Oikura, and why he changed as a person. But what is most important about this monologue is how Hanekawa says that no matter how much he changes, Araki is always himself. Something I believe she is jealous of, because as we know, Hanekawa does not understand herself. She isn't always herself, she doesn't know who she is. He doesn't play the role of a hero, doesn't follow a formula. Even if there are underlying reasons for it, Araki is just the kind of person to help others. Whereas a lot of what Hanekawa does is for a set purpose. She wants to be accepted by others, by her family, and also wants to be seen as normal. Those are the reasons she puts on her act. Now, as the two girls shower, a great showing of how close the two have become, we learn the first clue to unravelling the mystery of the tiger. Hanekawa says how she used to envy Senjigahara because unlike her, Senjigahara has saved herself and overcome her problems. Hanekawa is acutely aware of her own problems, yet she cannot face them. Hence why, as usual, the problem is shouldered onto an oddity, and so Black Hanekawa, now awakening when Hanekawa is asleep, goes out to stop Kako, to try remedy the problem in her master's place, which doesn't go very well, and so she returns without having dealt with the town's tiger problem, but as she does, she is met by Senjigahara, who offers a hand and accepts Black Hanekawa. Because Senjigahara is happy to accept all parts of Hanekawa, her friendship extends to all parts of her. It's kind of like a reverse of Araki, who tried to rid her of Black Hanekawa and did not accept her as part of Hanekawa. At least not back during the events of Tsubasa Family and Tsubasa Cat. This is why I strongly believe Senjigahara is Hanekawa's first proper friend, because she's the first person to see Hanekawa as an equal and to acknowledge the other sides of Hanekawa, not just the sides that she is trying to make her see. As the two girls eat, we discover that Hanekawa does not use sauce or dressings on her food. In fact, she has no preferences at all. If it is edible, that's good enough. She accepts everything equally, as no matter how it tastes, if it's food, she will eat it. And as such, adding sauce is a pointless endeavour. In a way, she has no identity because she has no preferences. Likes and dislikes are what makes a person them, but to be devoid of that leaves you hollow. Once more, the question is asked, does she really love Araragi? Because if she doesn't dislike anything, does she really love him? Nekomonogatari's favourite fake discussion is brought up again in this arc, as Senseigaara observes Araki is like a fake, and Hanekawa is the real thing. Araki pretends to be a bad guy and complains when he does the right thing, so he isn't seen as white. But Hanekawa accepts everything as it is. She doesn't hide her goodness. She is too white. She doesn't understand the danger of letting everyone know you are a good person. She isn't a saint or a nice person. She just doesn't understand the danger of the dark. She wouldn't survive in the wild. She would be prey to a tiger. Araki can survive because he hides his good nature, whereas Hanekawa has nothing to hide it with, having cut off all her dark feelings. In that way, Hanekawa is a failure of a person. To become a success, then, she must come to understand the dark. In other words, the feelings she has already cast aside. By Kanbaru's words, Hanekawa seems fine even though her house burned down, not normal behaviour in anyone's books. And now Hanekawa knows it isn't normal, she begins to notice more and more how abnormal she really is. An interesting thing to note is how Hanekawa at first does get jealous of Kanbaru for being the one Araki turned to for help. She feels envious it wasn't her. But unable to confront her emotions head on, she reasons her way out of it. Whereas Senseigaara actually gets jealous, because unlike Hanekawa, she accepts her own feelings. Hanekawa decides she won't go see Aragi even though her feelings are crying out for her to. Simply put, she won't put her own feelings first. And so instead, Senseigaara has to go out of her way to secure Hanekawa a place to sleep. Hanekawa wouldn't be able to ask for a place to sleep, it has to be forced on her, and so she stays at the Araki household. In Hanekawa's mind, she is taking advantage of the Fire Sister's kindness, and Senseigaara's too. In fact, forcing Senseigaara to play the role of a villain, and worse yet, it happened without her asking for help. No, let me phrase that. People had to do it because she wouldn't ask for help. She is not saving herself, in fact she abandoned herself. By not looking to save herself, by accepting the lack of flavour and putting up with everything as is, it makes her cease to feel like a real person. She lacks what makes people, well, people, because she makes no move to change. The Fire Sisters say smart people are actually normal, because they don't need to embellish who they are. They are the real thing. And this is true, but the issue is Hanekawa has done the opposite. She is not embellishing, she has stripped away most of what makes her her. When she sleeps in Aragi's bed, she feels dirty, but she doesn't know why. And this is of course because she won't confront these feelings. She won't tell Aragi how she feels, nor let go of these feelings, so all that is left is this weird feeling of dirtiness. When Black Hanekawa takes the stage again, we get more insight into their own mind. Our first proper look at Hanekawa's other emotions. The thing is, Black Hanekawa sees themselves as the dark side and Hanekawa as the light side. She doesn't think she can nor want to take the stage. Her confronting Kako can be seen once again as Hanekawa not bothering with her feelings, literally having one of her cut-off emotions deal with the other. Now Black Hanekawa can see Kako because Hanekawa could, aka they are the same person. It's an issue that affects all sides of her. Yet Black Hanekawa was too late and the cram school was already burned to the ground. In the following scene we get the first appearance of Aragi's mother, who despite her small role in this arc, delivers an incredibly important bit of dialogue. As Hanekawa is leaving the Aragi household, she says goodbye as if this was her own home. Another action of hers which is not normal, and one that as a result is called out. As Aragi's mother says, they can be her hosts, but not her family. She directly calls out Hanekawa's problem of just accepting the situation as it is, and tells her you can't always just accept the situation. A family isn't a must-have, but if you have one it should make you happy, aka Hanekawa shouldn't be accepting her current family life if it doesn't make her happy. And then comes this important bit of dialogue I was talking about. People are free to run away if something bad happens to them, but averting your eyes from reality doesn't count as running away. In other words, you can run away from your problems, but don't just look away. Make a choice, make a change, do not just accept it and act like it's not there. An outsider cannot interfere as long as you accept it. Only when you admit something is wrong can you be saved. After leaving the Araki household with this new advice, Hanekawa runs into Episode, you know, the half vampire that almost killed her by ripping open her side with a giant cross. So of course, she is not happy to see him. Yeah, as if. Even though he almost killed her, she shows him respect. And even worse, tries to hire him to kill the tiger, aka she'd rather let her almost killer deal with the problem than confront it herself. Episode says he could hardly tell it was her. It's like she's lost something, probably because she cut it off. Their conversation though is interrupted by Guyan. Now Guyan as an all-knowing person is the real thing. Like Hanekawa, there is no embellishments to her, but unlike Hanekawa, she hasn't tossed anything aside either. As one who knows everything, she acts almost like the word of God. One in control of the narrative, she is the ultimate authority, and she decrees that only Hanekawa can stop Kako and save herself. Guyan, you see, sees through Hanekawa and knows she is neither special or an exception. She is the same as everybody else, and so she should face her problems the same way that everybody else does. Now, with Senjigahara's help, Hanekawa hypothesizes that the flames of Kako come to everywhere Hanekawa has slept, meaning the next targets are the homes of Senjigahara and Araragi. By looking away from the issue, she has pulled others into her problem. And as she discovers by talking to the Fire Sisters, the most likely cause for Kako's appearance, to begin with, is envy. A tiger burning with envy. Even worse than her sleeping places being targeted, now it seems the victims of the tiger's arson are simply the places Hanekawa herself holds envy for and wants to burn to the ground. She never was a victim at all. She was the direct cause of this. She is the aggressor, sicking the oddity she created onto those around her who, unlike her, were brave enough to face their own demons and find happiness on their own. And so Hanekawa, to avoid this worst case scenario, commits to face herself with a letter. Now in the light novel, this letter is a long and incredibly introspective look into Hanekawa, as she for the first time opens up and admits she has a problem. Although the anime does a great job from a direction standpoint and does keep the most important points, at the end of the day, it cuts a lot. Like, a hell of a lot. Luckily though, on the Japanese Blu-ray of this arc, a reading of this entire letter by Hanekawa is provided, which has been uploaded with subtitles and visuals to YouTube by Valan. So if you are anime only, I do highly recommend checking out this video, link either up top if I remember, or in the description. But to hit the key points of this letter, Hanekawa felt no guilt in shackling Black Hanekawa to herself, like Araki does with Shinobu. But the difference between their two relationships is that Araki cared for Shinobu, that the two gave each other support. With Black Hanekawa, it was always one-sided. Black Hanekawa did so much for her, but what did she do for the cat? Only now does she come to realise this, and that's why her asking Black Hanekawa for help is so important, because she is now doing so with the knowledge of how little she does in return. She is now showing gratitude to the cat. By asking Black Hanekawa for help, she is simultaneously asking herself for help, but also another. Killing two birds with one stone, both her inability to lean on others, and also her reluctance to help herself. Ever since she was a child, she never looked at the darkness. It was self-sacrifice, not self-defense, because she looked away from anything bad. She had no growth. After all, growth comes from hardship. Because she never faced hardship, she never grew out of being naive, and so couldn't become twisted. She was left pure and naive, but not in a way that is sustainable. In this letter, she finally does what Araki has been trying to tell her since Golden Week. She admits she was abused by her parents. It's like his mother said, if she is fine with it, outsiders cannot interfere. Until she admitted she was abused, nothing could be done. Araki couldn't make her admit it, she had to do it herself. She never felt envy because she never struggled. She never had stress as she cut it away. Why envy others who struggle to do their best when you already do the best without feeling stress? That was the norm at least, but then like in Bakemonogatari, her emotions hit a breaking point. Not with love, but this time envy, as their parents had breakfast together. Not that they happened to eat at the same time, no, they were eating the same food. They cooked a meal for two and then ate it together. It wasn't eating, it was a meal. That is why she ran away to the cram school ruins, not because it was easier than staying with her parents. No, it's because she feared being left out, of being a 2 and a 1, not a 1, 1 and 1. She ran away scared of being left all alone, of even her abusive parents finding happiness. Her presence caused their reconciliation. She brought the family closer together, closer to the image she wanted, but was jealous of it anyway, burning with envy. And so a tiger appeared, but specifically it appeared only after she learned Araragi wasn't there to save her. Was it to subconsciously prevent her envy from being foiled, or was it forcing herself to have to stand up and save herself? She envied her parents and their newfound love, so burnt down their home. Envied Kambaru for meeting up with Araragi, so burned down the cram school. And now is envious of Senjukahara's family and the bond of the Araragis, so their houses were next. All her targets were homes as she didn't have one herself, and envied those who did. All this time she was just abusing herself, but now she wants to love herself. All of herself. Even if she doesn't have a house to call home, she can provide a home in her heart for those emotions she tossed aside. She wants to bring Kako back home. She wants all three of them to be a family together. She will love her stress and her envy. Every part of her is her, and she will face it the same as everybody else. But even with this confidence, fear remains, as she doesn't want to disappoint Araragi, even though she knows she will. What he values in her is exactly what she is trying to destroy. She loves Araragi as he is one who faces his own weakness over and over. She is dazzled by it. It was the one emotion she could not cut loose from her heart, the one thing she couldn't trust to an oddity, but also the one thing so great even Black Hanekawa also felt it. She is scared if she becomes her, then Araki will no longer like her. But even so, she must push on anyway, as she wouldn't be able to love him in good faith if she didn't do this. And so asked Black Hanekawa to save Kako, to bring their runaway little sister home, for them all to become one complete and loved person, to save themselves. Honestly, this letter is one of the greatest parts of the entire series. So raw, so heartfelt, so personal. So it is kind of a shame the anime cuts most of it out. But that isn't to say the anime didn't do one thing great with this letter, and that is the visuals. The anime takes us on a journey, a metaphor for Hanekawa's own journey of self-discovery. We see her graduate and travel the world, aka her future plans. She travels all over in search of herself and who she is. And yet when she reaches the conclusion that she will love herself, where in her journey is she? Well, back in Japan. Her return home corresponds to her wanting to save herself, because to save herself, she needs a home to return to. Just like how she returns to Japan from her travels, she must have a home to come back to, even if it's in her heart, to truly save herself. Accepting the request of her master, Black Hanekawa goes to stop Kako. It's a battle of her own emotions. Hanekawa calls them her little sisters, not wanting to use the label of mother due to a lack of any concept of motherhood. But the point remains, she considers them family. As they fight, Kako says that you reap what you sow. Hanekawa can't stand in their way because they were the cause. Kako is after all the result of Hanekawa being unable to process her envy. It's her fault these places are burning down. But if Senjukahara dies, Hanekawa would cry, and so Black Hanekawa cannot allow that. Kako disagrees, however, and says that she will just cut that sadness loose. Hanekawa herself rejecting this notion as she will change. She is happy to be hated, to be stupid, to get angry, to not smile, to cry. Because she doesn't want to be the real thing, she doesn't want to give up this act. She wants to be human, she wants to have flaws. Her true envy, it turns out, is not the target of the tyrannical tiger. No, what she envies right now is Kako themselves. She envies how the two oddities she created are not white, how they have been stained. Black Hanekawa puts themselves in danger, runs not away from the fire but towards it, not just for Hanekawa's sake but for her own too, because she wants to be loved, she wants them to be a family again. She thinks back to Senjukahara, to her friend, yet she is too weak. But isn't that in a way what Hanekawa wants? She's not perfect in this moment, not able to solve the issue with ease. She struggles, she becomes stained, and because of that, because for once she cannot solve a problem on her own with ease, she has the chance to be saved. And so steps in her hero, Araki. She fears if she absorbs Kako, she'll stop being the person Araki likes. But she either underestimates Araki or has very little confidence in herself. No matter what, she will still be herself. He will accept her no matter what she is like. And so he pats her on the head. This simple gesture really was all she wanted. To be accepted not as a perfect daughter or a perfect high school student, but just as herself. She isn't white and crystal clear, not anymore. And the man she loves doesn't care at all. She could be any colour and it would not matter. And so, she confesses. And well, he turns her down. But you know what she does? She accepts it. Even though she knew he was with Senjigahara, she always kept those feelings deep in her heart. She wouldn't address them, but now she resolves them. Even if it's not the outcome she wanted, she got closure for her feelings and as a result, can now move on. But first she must cry. She finally allows herself to cry, to not cut off sadness from her heart, but embrace it and feel sad for herself for the first time. As she absorbs Kako back into herself, her hair turns black and white, a constant reminder of the struggle she went through, but more importantly, a sign of her true colours. For the first time we can see all of Hanekawa. These white stripes were always part of her, always there. We just couldn't see them because she didn't want to see them, because she'd rather cut them away than embrace them. And then to put this growth to the test, she does something so simple we wouldn't even think to have to ask. But to Hanekawa, it was never so simple. She asks for a room of her own. She doesn't accept the situation. She takes action to make herself happy. She stands up for herself, and she puts value in her own happiness. For so long she had been wandering without a true home. She was lost. But now she had a home, a place to return to, a room of her very own. She finally wasn't out of place in her own house, because now it was her home. But she doesn't regret all that wandering, because if not for all the people she met along the way, the families, the friends, she would have not been able to change into the her she is right now. Her past is part of her present is part of her, and of course, so is her future. And who knows what the future will hold. But for now in the present, Hanekawa for the first time ever can say the words, Tadaima. I know I usually do the, but before that we need to discuss the beauty that is, insert opening name title card. But come on, how can I not leave that last part on that note? I think I did that in my Hanekawa analysis video too, which you definitely should check out because it really rounds up all of Hanekawa's arc into a more concise analysis than this video. But yes, now we will discuss the beauty that is chocolate insomnia. Now, as you may gather from the name, a prominent part of this opening is chocolate, being shown in two varieties, milk chocolate and white chocolate, which as you may have guessed, likely represent Hanekawa and her white emotions, and the dark emotions cast off from her heart held by black Hanekawa and Kako. And another prominent aspect is cardboard boxes, with Hanekawa starting off the opening by arriving within one. Now there's a lot of ways to interpret this box, but let me lay out what came to my mind. Firstly, she is sleeping in the box, aka not sleeping in her bed, and well, sleeping in the box, to me, brings to mind sleeping rough. So maybe this references her night in the cram school, or more generally how she doesn't actually have an actual bed to sleep in. She generally might as well be sleeping rough as she has no home. The fact the box is arriving somewhere could be to represent how she is being passed around from house to house, parent to parent. Or even on a darker view, how she isn't even a person, more like an object, since she lacks the flaws that make us human. Her being asleep is of note, as the title of the song suggests. Hanekawa sleeping is important, and I think this comes in two ways. Firstly, she is sleeping on her problems, not facing reality and looking away as if daydreaming. And secondly, when she is sleeping, black Hanekawa is out. Hanekawa is the emotions Hanekawa won't let people see, hence she is trapped in the box. This could also relate to her arc in this part. She needs to let the cat out of the box. She needs to think outside the box and take action, not acting as she normally does. As she wakes up from her sleep, she in a way wakes up from her fantasies and faces reality. We see a clock stop, which maybe I'm being stupid, but I think is her alarm clock, aka it's saying it's time to start the day, turning from milk to white chocolate as black Hanekawa relinquishes control to the all-white Hanekawa, and since it's now morning, stretches like a cat does in the morning. and then does radio calisthenics, which in Japan is an exercise routine kids do in the morning. If this is meant to be her normal life, it could show how despite her awful home life, she still lives like everyone else, putting up with everything as if it's normal. Or if this is meant to be after she has woken up and is wanting to change, it could explain the black cats alongside her. She now has accepted Black Hanekawa as part of her, and so carries her on alongside her. Since the white chocolate gives way to milk chocolate, it could either represent how Black Hanekawa takes over at night, or how she's letting her white side be tainted by the darkness of her other feelings. She is then carried away by some black cats, which likely is how Black Hanekawa shoulders Hanekawa's problems for her, before they all fall down a pit, maybe showing the despair both Hanekawa and Black Hanekawa face in this arc. She then eats some chocolate. Now, considering this whole fiasco started from her witnessing her parents sharing a meal, maybe this lone chocolate piece she eats represents her loneliness forced to eat alone as her parents enjoyed each other's company, and as such is almost like the red pill, since this realization of her envy is what makes her save herself. Hence why afterwards she grows a tail and cat ears. She now has committed to love herself, all parts of herself, even Black Hanekawa, and so becomes one with her dark side, coming to reflect a combination of the two. The white dress and head accessory she now sports maybe represent her desires of love. Her final act of saving herself, after all, is confessing to Araragi, so perhaps this is her desires of love for him. The field of sunflowers likely represents prosperity and luck, perhaps in reference to her hopes of a prosperous life with Araragi. As the scene shifts to night, we see Hanekawa still in control. She has made peace with Black Hanekawa, as already said, and accepted her. And we also see a fairy tale castle and wedding bells, lining up with my interpretation of this representing her love for Araki and her desires for the future. But this is just a dream, and so she goes back to sleep inside the box, bringing the opening full circle. But then as it ends, she leaps from the box, having fought outside the box and taken action. This is her new life, one where she is free to be who she really is, hence the wings carrying her up to a new world she is yet to experience. The lyrics of the song are pretty straightforward. Basically, it's Hanekawa singing about her love for Araki, and resolving by the end of the song to awaken from her slumber and save herself, even at the risk of Araki not liking the real her. As always, don't expect much out of this segment of the video, as I'm pretty sure these EDs at this point have basically no meaning, but I will try to definitely offer my best here. The opening opens with a tiger hunt, obviously a reference to Hanekawa hunting down Kako in this arc, but she fails to take the shot, perhaps representative of how exterminating this oddity was not the solution to the problem. A load of cats gather around a table to discuss things. Maybe these represent Hanekawa's emotions and how she needs to bring all the parts of herself together as one by the end of the arc. We also see what looks like a radar. Maybe this is Hanekawa trying to find herself, aka Kako. And one of the cats reaches a heart. Maybe this is Hanekawa getting closure on her feelings. And yeah, the lyrics are just, generic Hanekawa's a crush on Araki fare. Yeah, I almost didn't make this a segment, but it's tradition, so there you go. Araki, despite only appearing right at the end of this arc, has an incredible impact, as it is his absence that allows the story to proceed. Before this point in the story, no other character has narrated. Everything up until this point has been told by Araragi, everything has been seen through his eyes. And well, since Araragi by extension has been present in all the arcs so far, he has been involved in the problems of our series' heroines. And as the series loves to tell us, you can only save yourself all on your own. Araragi himself cannot save others, and so the first time we see a character properly save themselves all on their own, he needs to be absent from the story. The simple fact Araki, the hero of the story, is not present reinforces the core idea that you don't need a hero. And then when he does show up, what does he do? He rejects her. He doesn't reassure her everything is going to be okay or put another stopgap measure in place. She confesses, and he turns her down. Now don't get me wrong, Araki is instrumental in Hanekawa saving herself, but not as a hero or a saviour, merely as a reality check as closure on her feelings. As the story continues, this idea that Araki cannot save others will become more and more apparent, and this serves as the first example of this, because this shows clear as day that Araki can help people, but he cannot save them. When you boil down Hanekawa's story across all the arcs so far, at its core it is a story about love. Hanekawa simply wants to be loved, be it by her parents or Araki. She just wants love. When you look at it through this lens, everything kinda just makes sense. She acted like a perfect daughter to earn her parents' affection. She wanted them to love her, so she changed herself to try make that happen. Araki was horny for schoolgirls with big breasts, so to fulfill his fantasy and try earn his affection, she played the role of the perfect class president. She went from 1 braid to 2, specifically to match his expectations even more. She first unleashed Black Hanekawa due to the stress of not being loved by her family, and then again due to the stress of not having Araki return her feelings. Kaku was created due to her envy of her parents' love for one another. She did everything to be loved, but by doing so pushed those she wanted to love her even further away. Her parents found her too perfect, too blinding, and so were creeped out. They couldn't love her because she felt so inhuman to them. Araki likewise saw her as above him. He couldn't love her equally, he could only admire her as she stood as this perfect girl far above his own mockery of an existence. It's why the arc ends with her getting closure on her love. Being rejected and closing the book on those feelings, she placed herself on the same level as Araki for the first time, and as such was able to not be worshipped like before, but to be treated as an actual person and be rejected as such. And more importantly, she stopped acting like a perfect girl. She stands up to her parents instead of doing everything to appease them. She stopped doing everything to try get love out of others. She did stuff for her own sake. She loved and valued herself. By the end of this arc, she gets the love she always craved, but it came from within. She loved herself instead of trying to force others to love her. The biggest obstacle to Hanekawa's happiness was herself. She didn't value herself, and as such, didn't value the love she had for herself. By exchanging that letter with Black Hanekawa, she was for the first time able to acknowledge her own worth. Sure, it took a separate personality to pop into existence for her to realise it, but the point is she came to value Hanekawa. Her love for herself is just as important as the love for others. She doesn't need her parents' love if she loves herself. And as we see, her parents give her a room. The moment she loves herself, she shows value for herself outside of what others think of her. She becomes more human. She was literally more complete, and maybe as such, her parents saw her not as this creepy perfect daughter, but as well, their normal teenage daughter. She always felt fake, and that was the problem. She cut off her feelings and put on the act she thought would garner the most love from those around her. In that way, it's not wrong to say the Hanekawa we saw in Bakemonogatari, Kizumonogatari, and Nekomonogatari Kuro wasn't the real Hanekawa. It was just a small part of her, one devoid of true emotions and self-love, a creepy shell of a person that it is hard to love. But now she is different. She took her feelings back in, and she no longer puts on an act. She is full, she loves herself, and as such now, for the first time, those around her can see the real Hanekawa and can love not some creepy act but the honest to God real thing. Because at the end of the day, even if nobody else loves you, the one person you can count on to love you is yourself. This character arc about love ends not with Hanekawa getting together with her true love, no, because that wouldn't solve the problem. It is instead her loving herself that finally allows her to be loved, and brings her quest to be loved to a conclusion. Nekomonogatari Shiro is an arc that will always remain special to me, and although I don't relate to Hanekawa as much as I do to the other characters in the series, I think we can all understand what makes this arc of hers so real. It is in our nature to be loved. We all want it, to be accepted, to be embraced, to be loved. We want a place to call home, we want somewhere we feel safe. But what length would you go to achieve this? Some of us act a different way to how we really are. Some of us hide parts of ourselves out of fear. We don't want to be rejected or excluded, we want to be accepted, and we want to be loved. Hanekawa is someone who went to the extreme in an attempt to receive this love, but by doing so went too far and made herself unlovable, inhuman. Her story is one about accepting herself, of not putting on a mask, of not looking away from her true feelings. The bravery it takes to accept even your worst traits and love them, it just can't be understated. I don't know how many people, if placed in Hanekawa's shoes, would reach the same happiness she attains by the end of this arc. It's easy to look away from the problem, but it takes true courage to face it. We often don't want to burden others, especially when we fear they don't even like us. But you can't take everything on yourself. You need to rely on others, ask for help when things get tough. The longer you hide who you truly are and try to shoulder everything alone, the further and further you will get from being truly happy. What I took away from this arc is that your feelings for yourself, your love for yourself, is just as important as the way others feel about you. Don't change who you are to make others like you. Instead, be who you are and find those who like you for who you really are. Do that and you will find a true home, not one built on lies. Because it is okay to be yourself, it is okay to ask for help, And it is okay to love yourself.
And if you want to support this channel even further, then perhaps pledge to my Patreon or consider becoming a channel member so you can get your name at the end of the video, like
Rinjack9696, Mr. Sputum, Marimo, Jack Hammer, Zolby and Eric Hinton.